Hello and welcome to another edition of Access Asia. Here's what's coming up for you in the programme. The lingering coronavirus is having a massive impact on poverty-stricken youngsters in India, with the outbreak forcing millions into child labour. China says it's about to claim victory in the race to find a Covid-19 vaccine. This amid reports that hundreds of thousands have already been given an unproven drug. And he's no soldier or sprinter, but he's nevertheless bagged himself a gold medal. We'll have more on why this hero rat has been awarded for his work in Cambodia. We start this week in the world's second most populous nation, a country which is soon expected to become the hardest hit by Covid-19. Experts believe that the outbreak in India is disproportionately affecting some 40 million children from the poorest families who are now being pushed into child labour. Our team in New Delhi reports.
For over a decade, this unique school under a bridge in New Delhi served as a haven for thousands of economically disadvantaged children from the neighborhood. But now, Headmaster Rajesh Kumar is worried about a recent trend.
कोरोना के चक्कर में आजकल सारे बच्चे जो है घर पे बैठे हैं। मैं उनके घर पे भी जाकर के देखता हूँ तो माँ-बाप भी उन पे जो है काम करवाने लग गए हैं, क्योंकि इस समय पे कितने दिन तक बच्चा जो है घर पे बैठा रहेगा। कहीं पर भी जाते हैं तो 100-200 रुपए करना में मिल जाते हैं, उनको तो खर्चा तो घर का चलता ही है।
The pandemic is forcing children out of schools that are shut and into farms and factories to work, worsening the country's child labour problem.
इधर फिर कहाँ गई थी आप?
खेत पे से अभी आई थी।
खेत में काम करने के लिए जाती हो?
मूरी नराई थी।
10-year-old Monica Kumari helps to pick vegetables in a farm near her house, earning less than €2 a day for her labour. For her, it's a question of survival for her entire family.
खेत का काम करेंगे तभी घर का खर्चा चलेगा, और घर खर्चा नहीं चलेगा तो काम खाएंगे कैसे?
Indian law expressly forbids children under the age of 14 from employment of any sort. Barely a few hundred meters from the farm Monica works at, we find children as young as 5 years old employed in a makeshift fertilizer packing unit. They handle this hazardous material without any gloves or masks.
1000 पन्नी भरते हैं तो 100 रुपए मिलते हैं। 100 रुपए का हम घर का सामान भी ले आते हैं।
Online classes are not an option here. Most families cannot afford a smartphone.
The strategy to keep children out of labour has been education. Unfortunately, we have a huge digital divide in our country. Only 24% have access, and that also not optimum.
With the pandemic showing no signs of receding and no announcement for when schools will reopen, the future for millions of children in India is uncertain.
China, meanwhile, says it's close to crossing the finishing line first when it comes to finding trustworthy coronavirus vaccines. Scientists claim 610 million doses will be available by the end of the year. And one manufacturer says its product, known as CoronaVac, will soon be ready to be shipped globally. But as Peter O'Brien explains, not everyone is happy with the way these drugs have already been used.
China is tearing ahead in the race for a vaccine. Of all the coronavirus jabs being developed worldwide, Chinese companies are responsible for more than a sixth. One of them is Sinovac, based here in the suburbs of Beijing. Its solution is one of the few in the third and final phase of clinical trials. The CEO is confident it will be sold worldwide early next year.
So far, there haven't been any side effects, and 90% of our employees have already been vaccinated. The general public in China, Brazil and Indonesia should receive the vaccine before the end of the year or early next year.
In their laboratories, CoronaVac is being produced at a startling rate. It's to be administered in 2 doses, between 2 and 4 weeks apart. It's not yet known how much this one will cost, but the government's estimating the various vaccines will be priced at around €130.
Here, our coronavirus vaccine is undergoing quality control.
Despite still being under trial, it's already being manufactured in huge quantities for both domestic and foreign markets.
Our Covid-19 vaccine is contained in vials in these boxes. Each box has 600 doses for a total of 300 people.
Normally, a phase 3 trial involves testing and monitoring small groups of people to make sure there are no adverse effects before widespread rollout. But CoronaVac is one of several Chinese vaccines that have already been injected into tens, if not hundreds of thousands of people. Authorities are confident it'll be a success.
By the end of the year, we expect our annual vaccine production capacity to reach 610 million doses. Next year, our annual capacity will reach over 1 billion doses.
Under emergency use policy, government employees, vaccine company staff and now teachers, supermarket workers and people travelling to risky areas are all getting jabs of the substances which are clinically unproven by traditional standards. Expert observers like the International Vaccine Institute are worried not just about the potential side effects. They also fear people could behave like they're immune after being administered a partially effective vaccine and end up spreading the virus even more. China says it has the support of the World Health Organization in rolling out the vaccines before any peer-reviewed studies of them have been released, while the WHO says China's domestic emergency use program is not subject to their approval.
Now, a few decades ago, if you told the average French person on the street that one of the country's very best wines was also being produced in Asia, they'd have been aghast to say the least. But for roughly 10 years, one patch of Chinese soil has been cultivated by a prestigious Bordeaux vineyard, which last year bottled up its first Chinese vintage. Yuka Royer uncorks the story.
Welcome to Le Domaine de Landai. The sprawling 84-acre estate is located in the heart of the Tian Shan Valley, northeastern China. It's run by the iconic French winehouse Chateau Lafite and was developed with vine seedlings from Bordeaux. This year's harvest is well underway.
We're picking Cabernet Sauvignon grapes. They're ripe. We've been tasting them for the past week or two. We make sure that no leaves or bad or dried grapes get mixed into the harvest. It's important to taste the grapes to see if there's the right amount of sugar, acidity and tannins.
The Bordeaux-based company purchased the land back in 2009 and spent a decade developing the vineyard before releasing its first made-in-China vintage last year. 12 local farmers work on the grapes.
In each drop of wine made here, there's a bit of my contribution, and I'm very proud of that.
In France, you have lots of seasonal workers, whereas here the advantage is that we only hire local people who know the vines very well and who work with us all year round. So naturally, the quality is better.
These 220 barrels for aging the wine were also sent from the chateau in Bordeaux. Inside, a cepage of 3 varieties of grapes.
Our goal is not to compete with Bordeaux wines, it's to make a great Chinese wine.
At €300 a pop, the label is China's first Grand Cru. In a country where 70% of Lafite bottles are fake, the winehouse added an extra high-tech layer of protection.
This app has just scanned the bottle, showing it is authentic and has never been opened.
China has been one of the world's biggest wine consumers for some time. Now it's also fast becoming a top producer. The race is on to produce high-end Chinese bottles to appeal to domestic customers. At this connoisseurs club in Shanghai, a bottle of Long Dai was put up for blind tasting.
Today we'll compare 2 wines, a Long Dai and another high-end Chinese wine. Let's compare the colours first. You can see that the one on the right has a slight yellow tinge.
The members easily identified Lafite's Chinese wine, recognizing its signature note and flavour.
This one is fruitier and lighter.
I think that in a few years this wine will be very nice.
Attracting Chinese customers with a new label, but it's also a way for the French chateau to fight counterfeit Lafite bottles.
Next, when you think of a rat, many of you will surely think of a dirty nuisance that likes to scratch around in your rafters. But one very special rodent has been decorated with a gold medal for putting his nose and whiskers to good use. Magawa has been awarded for his devotion to duty for sniffing out landmines and other explosives in Cambodia. Emerald Maxwell reports.
He could be the world's most unlikely lifesaver, but that's exactly what this giant African pouched rat does. Named Magawa, he's now taking home a gold medal for life-saving bravery and devotion to duty sniffing out landmines. He's cleared land the size of 20 football pitches of explosive devices, transforming lives in rural Cambodia. Light enough not to set off mines as they go about their work, hero rats like Magawa have been trained to ignore scrap metal and only sniff out the chemical compound within explosives, making them much more efficient than metal detectors. Raised by a charity in his native Tanzania, Magawa was certified to detect mines after a year of training. Cambodia had millions of landmines laid during 3 decades of war, causing tens of thousands of casualties.
Landmines still terrorize the lives of so many Cambodians and other people all over the world. We hope that we can solve the landmine problem in the next 5 to 10 years. But it needs the engagement and the support of the wider public.
As well as his medal, Magawa was rewarded with his favourite tasty treats, bananas and peanuts. The charity says the rats only work for up to 5 years. Afterwards, a retirement of play and exercise beckons.
And we end this edition with something kind of hot and steamy in Japan, with his protective Covid-19 mask causing his glasses to frequently fog up. This Japanese artist decided to create something fun out of his annoyance. Takehiro Shibata has made a 3D novelty ramen mask out of felt, giving him a vision of a warming and an inviting bowl of noodles. He hopes it's one way to cheer up the people that he bumps into during the ongoing pandemic. Well, that's all from me and the Access Asia team, but do stay tuned to France 24.